How's it going, Blazers? We're going to bring you specifications you can relate to so you can have an educated decision on your purchases. This is going to be something a little bit different. I haven't been able to look at a sharpening system for the Apex pass-around group, so this is actually one that I was able to check out. So this is also, interesting enough, they're in Hood River, Oregon. I'm in Salem, Oregon, so that's actually kind of a cool thing. Kind of brings it more to a local type of setup. So this is going to be the Edge Pro system. There's going to be the base unit with some upgrades that are available for it as well that I think make a lot of difference for it. So if you're looking at the different measurements, when you look at the actual adjustment for it, you're going to have 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 18 degrees, 21 degrees, and 24 degrees. So I'm going to probably stick to about 15 degrees as far as where I'm going to go for that, which is going to be the red. So this is kind of the base setup for it. There is some different things that are available for this that is making it a lot better. So this is where you get this little C-clamp. So I'll take this apart while we look at this. So this whole rod assembly comes out. And we'll talk about this as well because I made a mistake when I first set it up, and then we'll kind of look through things. So this is going to be a long video because I'm not going to be editing too much for it, but this is going to be the setup. So this is actually a little guide or a bench mount. So this is something that I set up onto a dinner tray, which is actually really a very convenient way to do it. C-clamp goes right to the desk, and then this is just a aluminum bar, and this actually drops in to the base of the unit here. So that actually makes it really nice, be able to lock it in, because the suction cups are good, but I found that sometimes they were coming loose. So now it's just, this makes it a whole lot easier. Don't need to worry about it coming off the table. Everything kind of stays where it should go, and I like it quite a bit in this orientation. So I might be picking one of these up at one point. So that's where it's locked in. So this isn't going anywhere, so use the table moving, not the actual sharpening unit. Comes with this little piece of tape on it, so that's where you can do here, or actually add it to the blade that you actually have. They recommend even using the one from USPS, which is the clear tape, if you want to use that on the blade so you don't scratch it up, because as you sharpen, you might get metal shavings, diamond, some type of abrasive on this plate, and as you're flipping the blade over, you might have little scratches on your blade. And if it's not a user, you're not going to want that on there. So this is one thing, this comes together. So this is a nice little assembly, so you pull back on this to actually release the actual stone. And that's kind of be how that comes off of there. So it's a pretty good setup for that. I'm going to just put these right here in kind of an order. But when I initially set this up, so this rod kind of can kind of float around, so I can actually do it this way. So when I did it, I don't know how I did it. So this is the first way I did it. So if you can see it here, this is where this little assembly is on the outside. So there's no rest for it when you're actually working with the bar. So I kind of had to rest on the table when I was working with it. And this is actually the wrong way to do it. So this actually should be on the other side. So as you lift it up, this rod actually flips all the way around. And then you would actually do it this way. So insert the rod, tighten this little nut in, and then now when you move it to the side, it actually does have a rest. So it has a little nub on the bottom side, so on either side that you're going to do it, you're able to rest the stone, the bar, so you can flip the blade around and then get going back at things. So that's a really good way to get it set up. These legs actually fold down as well, so that gets out of the way, so if you want to get it put away. So the original one comes with this base plate, so that actually would hold the blade in place. But the kind of the shining star for it right now is that slide guide for the Apex. So this is going to be the one I'm going to be using here. So this is the slide guide. So as this goes, you have this point, which is going to be a part of the blade, and you're actually able to move this up a great deal. So if you do have like a Spyderco, Delica, or something like that, which has that really cute point, which drops down quite a bit, you can actually adjust it where it actually will be level. So that actually makes it a really good setup. So that's going to be dropping in there. Drop this to the bottom. You can line that up. Put this little screw on, little wing nut. So that's going to be that setup. And now, so what I've done, so as any sharpening system, when you find one that you like, you're probably going to go through the house and just sharpen stuff, because I picked up different knives and I was doing that. Even a kitchen knife. My kitchen knives aren't very good either, but I guess not either, because my other knives are pretty decent. Kitchen knife, not so much. So I took this SOG. So this is the edge I put onto it. I think this one was up to 2300 for this blade. So SOG also looks good. Now they're coming out with some new knives, getting back into it, so they seem like they're heading in the right direction, which is a pretty awesome thing for SOG. So they're actually going back to more of a community-based performance and not so much economical Walmart-based. But they have some new knives coming out that look interesting. I wish they were not assisted, so I'm going to see if maybe I can de-assist one for it. But that's the edge I put on that. And then now I'm going to be putting one onto my Kershaw Skyline Legendary blade. Sadly, I saw it discontinued, so hopefully this is part of a sprint run at some point for Kershaw. But this is kind of where things started out. Very light, very much before the time of bug outs and everything else. You had the Kershaw Skyline. So that's going to be where I'm going to be lining this up. So it does have a magnet on the bottom too. So as you move this out of the way, it has a little plunger here where you can move the magnet and actually line it up, and you can actually actuate the magnet, and then it's actually locked into the table there. So we'll adjust this up. So now I'm going to set it up where this thumb stud or the blade stop actually is right there, and I'm going to adjust this up. So that's kind of out of the way. So as I go and set it up, so it's going to be going across this edge. When I pick it up and flip it around, I'm going to basically line it back up with that stop and then put it right on there. So it's going to be the same on both sides. So that's where the KME seems to be one that is very popular for it, but I think this is a good system. You can see the edge with it, just like the KME, so you can see it. I found that I didn't need to use a Sharpie. I know that's a very big standard for some of it to try and figure that out. But I didn't find it to be too necessary. I'm going to adjust this down to that red mark, which is going to be for 15 degrees. And then I'm going to start off with a fairly aggressive stone. So they come with two different style stones. The base system comes with this one. You're able to see a big difference because then this is just a flat aluminum plate. The diamond stones are highly polished. So that's going to be the difference there. So this is like 220 stone. A recommendation for if you just don't have a very damaged blade or anything else like that, then this is actually an 80 diamond matrix stone. So I'm going to start here just because I'm going to see if I need to reprofile it a lot, because again I'm trying to get that down to that 15 degrees. It shouldn't take too long for this as well, because this is a 14C28 blade. A little bit of water, nothing that's crazy. Don't need to soak these stones. Sometimes you might not even need to use water on some of the stones, but we'll see how this works out. So it's going to be basically a pull-push method for this. For this little table, there's a little place on the bottom where I can kind of rest my feet to keep everything in one place. So we're going to just go across and see what I'm working with here. So I already see the marks that are happening on the blade, so it's going pretty quick. To get this down. So as we go across, I can see it changing. I can see the angle being put onto it. And then one thing you don't want to do is fall off of the tip, because you could actually round it off. So I might just do that accidentally, but I haven't been using the system for very long. But it is something that is a possibility to actually round that tip off. And it's pretty bad, especially if you get all the way to the end and round the tip off. And then you can kind of see, so you can rest the stone down and then just check the edge. So I don't have anything on it yet, but since I'm bringing it down to the angle, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to try it on the other side to kind of work it back and forth. I don't want one edge to be more than the other. I don't want to do a chisel grind on it. So that's where we're going to just go back and forth a little bit on this. So I did use a belted system for this knife when I initially did it. So that's going to be one that wasn't, I don't know, you put a decent edge on it, but whenever you use some type of fixtured system, it seems like it just puts a more consistent edge on it. And granted, you can go and get better. Professional sharpeners, people that do this for a living, they'll probably have a belt on there, which is a super fast way to do things, to actually get things sharpened up. So that's actually something that is, as far as a production base, is good. And using this type of setup, this might be a good thing for if you are just wanting to sharpen while you're watching a show. Granted, if you have family, you might drive them crazy, so maybe not a good idea for that, especially if you want to keep the hobby going. But this is where I'm going to be just going back and forth, just seeing where everything lays. You can concentrate on little other points. If you see that a certain part of your secondary bevel is getting a little bit too steep, you can kind of concentrate that on to actually see where that is. But we're getting that going. So concentrate on this heel area. I was noticing that it wasn't really catching a lot of it. We might be speeding this up a bit in post-production, so you might be hearing me in more of a chipmunk voice, but I'm not too sure. It depends on how long this takes to actually get it done. I can hear the stone change in tone as I'm working with this as well. So as it flattens out, you start to take off a little bit more metal. The tone is actually changing as well. So we'll see where this is. So I'm seeing it get there. Not quite to a burr on the other side. Got the burr on this heel of the blade, and that's also where it kind of had a little bit of smile. So that's where we'll keep on working it. Flip over to the other side. But as you're progressing up on the different stones, you want to make sure that you're sharp from the get-go. So if you think that you're going to get sharper as you go, you refine the edge, but you're not getting sharper. So you want to make sure that you're at the appropriate sharpness before you move on to the next stone. Otherwise, all that work's going to be for nothing, and you're going to be just working away and then putting a mirror polish on something, and then you're not going to have actually a really good edge on there. So you want to just make sure that your first stone is providing a good edge for you. The really high grit stones are going to be more for reprofiling. You don't want to really be working a burr too much for some of these, but it is something that you can do. Just getting there. Yeah, I have a lot of kind of sentimental attachment to the Skyline just because it was kind of the start of things. This was going to be kind of the one blade that I was going to kind of have for the duration of my collection. This is going to be the only knife that I would pick up. If you ask my wife, then that was kind of may have been a bad starting point for that. But it is something that's grown into something that's enjoyable, somewhat frustrating at some times, but still something that's good overall. So we're seeing that edge around there. And again, I'm not too sure how long this is going to take to get this reprofile done, but once you get the profile done, then you can probably mark it down in a book somewhere so you know where the blade is. So when you can reset your system, you can go, okay, well, I had this blade at 20 degrees, I had it at 18 degrees, so you can actually just reset it instead of actually doing a whole reprofile on your blade, which that actually might be a good way to do it. So in different news, I mean, Joe Rogan's leaving YouTube, which is kind of an interesting thing. For anybody who listens to podcasts. Some other things that I listen to, Philip DeFranco. If you guys follow him at all. So getting closer, getting closer. You can see, they'll see the original bevel for it. So I'm going to continue to work on it to get that down where I like it. But making pretty quick work of it. Again, so the good thing and the bad thing about this type of fixtured system where you're using some sort of stone and not a belt. A belt might be faster, but also it might be faster to the point where you're taking off more steel than you need, which is kind of a bad thing for that. So good for productivity, bad for the fact that you're taking away too much metal and changing the shape of your blade as you're going, and especially if you're not practicing it. So I'm sure the folks that do this professionally, you see them at the shows and everything. As for Kershaw and some of the other companies, I mean, they do that a regular basis. I mean, that's their full-time job that they're sharpening. So they can take it to a belt and then just sand it out and actually get something that's really good. But if you're not going to be doing that on a regular basis, then that might be where you might mess up a blade. That's basically reprofiled. So again, if I didn't mention before, this was provided to the Apex Pass-Around group from the Edge Pro as well. So thank you again for allowing us to take a look at it. This is going to go around to a few reviewers so we can get an idea as far as how it works, how it functions. But let me get a piece of paper to see if I got an edge on this. So got a little bit of ways to go still. So I'm trying to change, sorry about that. So I'm trying to change a convex edge to this profile. That's one thing that I'm just trying to figure out as I'm going. But this is something that I've been kind of working with a few different blades to actually play around with the system, get a better understanding of how it works. But you can kind of see just the reflection on the blade as you're going until you can kind of get it back to the same profile. If you can see the edge, at least on this one, I can see as far as the edge of the blade, it still has a little bit of a different shine to it, and that's where I'm kind of going back and forth because I'm trying to keep that pretty symmetrical, so I don't want to do a chisel grind edge. So that's where you're going to just sharpen it all the way down on one side. It's not what I'm going for here. I'll probably speed this up a little bit to see what I end up at. But I still have the tip of the blade that I need to get, or the edge of this blade that I need to get down to the same profile. Because I'm seeing the edge that's not quite there yet. You can start to see it disappear as you go, as you're sharpening it up. But I see kind of right in this area and that area, it still has kind of a irregular grind. And that's where sometimes with a belt you can get something that's sharp but not consistent. So that's what I'm finding that I did to this blade, is I got it sharp but I didn't get that edge consistent. And that's where you can kind of play around with these fixtured systems. You can get something that's sharp and consistent, so when you're actually putting another edge on it or bring it back, then you're actually going to have a pretty good setup. And I think I'm shaking that camera a lot, so I'll try and not do that. Almost there. Finish out the other side, and I'll probably move to the next stone after this. Again, this is an 80 grit. I'm not having to reset the sharpener at all, which is actually kind of a nice thing with this clamp mount. And I think I'm getting maybe a little bit too much metal shavings within the stone as I'm going. So I did say not to try and get an apex on the sharper stone or the coarser stone. I'm just seeing in certain sections if I can get it to roll over, because I'm seeing on the tip there's just a little bit of area that is not quite there yet. That's all I'm trying to do as I work through. So we've got the apex on most of it, so I'm going to flip it back over to the other side, just again to keep everything kind of symmetrical, and then we're going to just move up to the next stone. So this is kind of something that's kind of therapeutic in a way. If you're going to be doing sharpening, freehand sharpening is something that's actually a dying art. So for folks that do freehand sharpening, much respect to that, because it is something that is an important thing to continue on for freehand sharpening. As you see, you're able to flip it over fairly quickly. So it doesn't have the rotation of the other one. So the KME systems, even some of the Russian systems, you can just flip it over and has a kind of a click. This one you actually do just flip the whole blade. So most of it, except for the tip of this knife, is still not there yet. So there's probably going to be a lot of things as far as things that I might not be doing exactly correct. So that's one thing about any type of system. There is a little bit of a learning curve for it. And then somebody that's professionally that does this regularly might have different tricks or tips that will help out to make things a lot quicker, a lot more efficient in getting this done. But it's something that has been enjoyable to learn and figure out for myself. Yep, so pretty much along the whole edge of the blade, able to get a burr on it, and now just working on the tip of it because the tip is not quite there. So we're just going to go back and forth again on that to just be able to get the tip of the blade to where it matches up to the rest of the knife. That's where some of the super steels out there, like it takes a lot more work on some of those. And then especially to try and do a Scandi grind. I tried to do a Scandi on one of the knives and it was quite difficult. I ended up trying to do it and then I kind of gave up and I went and did a secondary bevel on it. So that's all the way down. I can feel that burr. So just working on the tip of the blade, and then the rest of it's going to be quick work. So once you get the grind that you want, then it's going to be just a quick progression through some of the other stones. I think I'll get pretty satisfied with the results that I'm getting from this. So almost. So I can feel it right here. So all the way down, you can feel that burr on there, except for the tip. This is actually a good thing that my dog came down because I stopped to take her up to the bathroom and then I figured that my battery died on this camera. So I did get the blade fully burred on the 80 and then now I moved up. I did the 250 and then now I'm on to the 650. So already got the sharp edge on it, and then from there all I'm doing is taking away the scratch pattern, refining the edge a little bit, but that's about all I'm doing for those. So it makes it pretty quick work when it comes to the other stones, and you can feel the difference once you get the scratch patterns to change. And then as we go up to a higher, then even on this one, you kind of feel a little bit of a sticking as far as the stone onto the blade. I guess that's the best way I can actually describe that. So I got all those scratch patterns out, and then actually created a burr on the other side too. So going through this one. And you're going over the same angle, so you're not having to change it at this point, which is a good thing. Yeah, so even with that type of grit, it's still getting a burr on the other side. I'm still rolling that edge back and forth. And rolling, I mean kind of a good thing. So a lot of times you hear rolled edge and you think it's a really bad thing, especially because you're doing it in use. So as you go through this, anybody that's watching this knows about the sharpening side, but basically you're coming to a point, and then you're sharpening one side, it pushes over, you're sharpening the other side, it pushes over. So that's what you're feeling. So then when you're finishing out a certain one, then that's where you're kind of doing a little bit on each side to get it to be a point. So I'm no professional for that. So somebody else could probably voice that a little bit better or talk to that a lot better than I can. But that's my understanding of it, and that's what I've been able to experience with the system also. It's a good system. I think if I was to put one together, I probably wouldn't go with like the whole deluxe unit. I would probably not get the base and kind of build it myself as far as what I like. But that's going to be your own preference as far as what you want to put together, what you're looking for a system. There's not a lot of pressure being put on it either. I can see some of the grind from the previous one. So I'm going to work on a little bit more for this stone before I move on to the next. That's all you're doing at this point is refining and then taking out the previous grind pattern. Because if you don't, then especially if you're going to go to a mirror polish, there's no real purpose for that, because you're not going to have a good mirror polish because you didn't take out the previous grind pattern. You're going to be able to see it on the final product. And for the folks that do mirror polishes, and especially for a professional basis, I give you credit, because I don't think I would want to do that on a regular basis to get people's knives that mirror shine every single time. And a lot of that seems to be the request, because really you could probably just stop at the 650 if you want to. You could probably even stop at the 250. It really depends on what you're using your knife for. Will determine as far as how high you want to take it. If it's more of a show blade, I mean, a lot of those are just high polished for that reason. But it's not a necessity. Yep, so that's looking pretty good. So we're going to just get everything lined up before we move on to the next one. going over lightly. At this point, barely putting any pressure on it. Actually, it's basically almost the pressure of the stone at this point. And so still a little bit wet, but we'll see how this one comes out. I need to get a different piece of paper too. Coming along nicely. This is going to be pretty satisfying to have that back to a good sharp edge. Because if you just break it in, that's one thing about the Skylines is it's still running on washers, so you're not going to, or you have to break it in or polish it. So either way, naturally or polish it up as far as those bearings or washers. A little bit of water on it, then we'll get everything's in place the way it was. And I plugged in the camera because I didn't want to have the battery die again. So the only other thing that might happen is I might run out of memory, which is always a possibility. Because I haven't done a lot of sharpening videos. I give credit to those people that do this on a regular basis too, for sharpening videos. Yeah, but that's coming out nicely. We're on to 1100, but still seeing some of the scratch patterns for this this stone. So you're going to keep on wanting to work to get that the pattern to be taken off. For each progression. So if you can see the previous hash marks, then you're going to want to stay on the stone that you're on for a little bit longer. Because I don't think I'm going to take this to a full high polish. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I can still see some of the grind patterns, and I'm kind of okay with that. You're kind of just flipping from hand to hand. So if you're not ambidextrous, I am not, then this might be something that's a little odd for you to do one hand or the other. Yeah, but refine the edge, still now have a little bit of a burr from that work. Yeah, so that's really nice. So that's at 1100. Don't know how well that's coming across. Then we're going to go up to 2300, just because a little bit of water, wipe off the excess. Blade in place. And you can definitely feel a difference between all the stones. So just finishing off the knife. So thank you again for folks that are sticking around. If you guys want to see more of these type of contents, then let me know. But there's probably more for my own type of baseline on history. I don't expect many people to watch this all the way through. And if you did, either background white noise, or you really like sharpening stuff. You see it's a quick side to side. There's no worrying about where your clamp was, if your clamp moved. That's one thing that's kind of a benefit. So let's get a new piece of paper and let's see where we ended out. There's a new sheet of paper, so we'll see how this cuts through here. I don't know if you can just hear the difference. Making S cuts. And I am nowhere near a professional, but that's a lot sharper than I started with. So that's the Edge Pro. I like it a lot. We'll see how it goes. I might have to pick one up. But that's going to be the edge that I put onto it. So still not perfect. Still not something that if I was paying for a mirror polish, I probably would want that a little bit more, because you can still see the grind pattern in it a little bit, but that's a nice edge on it. So that's the Skyline. That's the system. Pick it up, especially if you're wanting to get into something. I haven't experienced the clamp systems, but overall this is something that does really well. It has a standard stones. I've been using diamond stones, and that first one to reprofile, might be better to make sure that I clean it off, because I was trying to do that Scandi grind on it. I may have clogged up some of the pores for it, so it wasn't cutting as quickly as it was before, but super nice edge for that. So it just like, sometimes you just haven't experienced a really sharp blade until you do one of these setups. But that's about all I have to say about that one today.